Hello everyone, and welcome to the second instalment of the Icom IC R 30 tutorial. Hope you enjoyed the first video. I appreciate the orientation was wrong, completely my fault. These videos will get better. I've now got some decent video editing software. We'll have cutaways to the manual, cutaways to the programmable software, cutaways to the mobile app which controls the radio. So fantastic. I hope you found the first video informative. I hope you're moving forward. Today we're going to discuss Squelch. How do we use Squelch? What is Squelch? And the different types of Squelch operation that this radio supports. Okay, so first things first, what is Squelch? Think of it like this. Normal everyday Squelch, think of it as a door that must be opened for your radio to receive a signal. Okay, for the time being, think of the door as permanently shut. On the other side of that door is your radio. So if you set the Squelch to open, you're going to hear everything. You're going to hear all the white noise, all the muck, all the rubbish you don't want to hear. Okay, and then you've got different ascending levels from there. So let's go through that. And this applies to every radio, not just Icoms. The specific Squelch on this radio, which is different, is something called voice Squelch. There's also data Squelch. We're going to go into them right now. Here we go. So we'll turn the radio on. We are on. Okay, so that is a memory channel. We're going to go into VFO mode. See, so VFO MR. Press that. We're on the A band. There's a frequency. Okay, I'm going to turn the volume up. Hold that in. We're going to turn it right up. Okay, so at the moment I've got my Squelch set to auto. Not all radios will have this. I don't think Unidons have it. So Icom, being a really nice radio, auto basically means you're letting the radio deal with it, which in 99.9% of situations is the best way to go about it. So remember what I said? At the moment I can't hear anything because no one is broadcasting on that frequency. If I have my Squelch set to open, what happens? I'll show you. So on this radio there's a button there, okay? Dial on top. I appreciate you can't see it in the video, but the rotational knob on top of the radio. Okay, we're going to hold the button in, rotate the knob so the Squelch is open, permanently open. You'll hear everything. Okay. Auto, open. Okay, letting all the rubbish through. Back to auto. Okay. So what happened there, I opened the door, all the shit came through, all the white noise, all the rubbish. So we're set to auto, we can't hear anything because no one's broadcasting. Now, there's different levels on this radio, they go from 1 to 10. The vast majority of circumstances, just leave it on auto. If you're in a big city or somewhere where everyone's speaking, or you're standing right next to an amateur repeater where the signal is absolutely booming out the door, you might want to increase your Squelch level, otherwise it's going to overload the front end of the radio and you're just going to hear garbled nonsense because the signal is so powerful. So if you want to increase the Squelch level from auto, which you probably won't have to do very often, you hold down that, okay, auto, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Sorry, just 9. Okay, but we're going to leave it on auto. I advise you do the same. Not much more to say about Squelch. When we cover the HF bands, so lower sideband, upper sideband, okay, CW, the radio's clever and it knows that you don't want the Squelch on for that because of the nature of how those signals are transmitted. HF stuff we're going to cover a lot further down the line. This radio is fantastic for that. I know a lot of people have bought this just to listen to HF signals. We will cover those, okay? So the other type of Squelch that this radio has, which can be extremely useful, is called voice Squelch. It's an Icom thing. Other radios do have it, but they call it something else. Okay. Now what voice squelch is meant to do is when you're scanning in VFO mode, you can also apply it to a memory channel. Okay. Voice squelch will only open the squelch, so this means it will only let you hear what is being broadcast on that channel if the radio thinks it's a voice or a modulated signal. So a signal that is going up and down, up and down, up and down. The radio will know this and let you receive it. If it's a data signal, it should skip right over it, which is the main purpose of voice squelch. It's also extremely handy when there are channels that don't just transmit voice, they also transmit data. An example of this in the UK would be the Marine Band, which I think has got 82 channels plus M1 and 2. Sometimes there are paging messages on those channels which will come through in your radio as beeps, sharp beeps. If you've got voice squelch turned on, you won't hear that. You'll only hear the voice on that channel, because why would you want to hear the paging tones? It's not really important, is it? So I'm now going to put the radio on a frequency where I know that there is data. Okay. Now remember, when we do this, we'll scan the band we put in the first video, which was the taxi band, which I know there is a trunked network on there. Okay, this radio doesn't support trunking. We'll scan the band without voice squelch turned on. Okay, so scan, we'll go down to taxi, we'll enter that, and we're scanning. We will hear some stuff. Okay, that's a data signal. Now I looked into this. There you go. That's a transponder. It's been going on for a long time now, months. I was told it was maybe a set of temporary traffic lights or a pager maybe. Now as you can see, we don't want to hear all that nonsense, do we? So, voice squelch. Press quick. Okay, VSC, voice squelch. Turn it on. This might work, it might not. Voice squelch. We're on. See, now the radio is identifying that as a modulated signal, so it won't actually jump over there. Let's leave it on. Okay, because I press scan, the scanner stopped. So we need to reinitiate the scan. Scan. Taxi. So let's see. Now when we get to about 164, we'll hear a trunked network. Okay, that there is a modulated signal, but it's just white noise. We'll move on. There we go. Hear that? Now VSC, it can be your friend, it can be your enemy. In this case, it's it's picked it up and it's moving on. Okay, so we omitted that data there, so let's just, back to scan, turn VSC off. Okay, off. We're going to scan the taxi band again. We're going to go back, so we're going in the other direction. Now this, now with that off, you'll hear the data. Okay, now that's going to stay there until you tell it to move. Alright, and it's quite wide. Yeah, okay, now let's try it again with voice squelch. Quick, VSC, turn it on. Okay, voice squelch in this instance hasn't picked that up. It can work, it can't work. I don't use it very often, I've got to be honest, but it's a feature that's there. If you draw it does emit 90% of data signals. Okay, so that's just an option, it's there if you want it. It's not something I use very often. Okay, so another feature when you're in VFO mode, scanning through the band, is the scope feature. Okay, now let's go back to that data channel. We're going to turn it down. Now the scope feature, okay, the scope feature will go up and down in your channel step, the step you've chosen. There's your step. Okay, now we're set on 6.25, that could be any band, any step. Alright, now what we're doing with this is, we might want, I'll give you an example, there are duplex radio operations, okay? Let's just say a taxi company is transmitting on 160.000 from the office. The driver might be talking back at 4.8 megahertz offset to that frequency. That's called a duplex radio system. Okay, with the scope feature, okay, I can press scope. It will stay on the frequency we're on. However, it will provide a band scope picture of all the frequencies that are 6.25 megahertz in step, 15 that way, 15 that way. Okay, so it's 15 times a channel step in each direction. I'll show you what I mean. For the easiness of maths, we're going to put this on 5 kilohertz. Okay, we can all do our 5 times table, I hope. Okay, we know this is just a data signal. I want to know how wide that data signal is. Scope. Okay, single sweep. It will do one sweep, and that's all you're going to get. Press enter. Right, you see that little graph at the bottom? So in the middle is our center frequency, 164.225. When I rotate the knob, there's a little cursor there, that will move 5 kilohertz. 5 kilohertz, and on the next one it should have gone, and it's gone. See, there is no signal there. Let's go back the other way. Starting, data, data, data. So at the time we did, oh no, it's still there, the sweep, it was there. Okay, go back, empty, there was something there, we don't know what that was. It can be very, very useful for identifying what's happening, or especially how wide a channel is. Okay, continuous sweep, yeah, will constantly scan back until you tell it to stop. Continuous sweep. So that's going to keep going. Don't forget, we've moved our center frequency to 164.195 via the cursor. Okay, now that graph at the bottom isn't changing because I know that's where it is, so we'll stop the sweep, go back to single sweep, or no, we'll leave it on single sweep. Okay, do one more pass. So let's go back, and there's our data signal. Okay, can be useful in HF to see where different people are operating, especially if you're like 14 megahertz. You can identify where the stronger signals are, stuff you're likely to hear. Okay, so that's the scope operation. Okay, let's move off this. Okay, so that is squelch covered, so don't forget. Okay, clear, gets rid of your scope. Don't forget, squelch, normal squelch on every radio is a door that has to be opened for your radio to hear the signal. Okay, in this case, leave your radio on auto, let the radio deal with it. The only exception I'd say is if you're in a high HF environment, you might want to increase the squelch to only let the most powerful signals through. Okay, let me show you what happens when we go onto a HF band. The radio knows that you probably won't have the squelch on the HF band. Okay, so we're going to go, let's go to 4 megahertz. Okay, so to directly input the frequency, yeah, that one there, INP input, and we're going to put in 4.000. Okay, AM narrow, 4 megahertz. You hear that? The squelch is permanently open, because if it wasn't, you probably wouldn't hear anything. Okay, also you see ANL, auto noise limiter, right? So this will filter out some of the background rumble, the background hiss. Okay, it's a nice feature, especially when you're listening to airplanes and things like that. So let's go to quick. ANL is there. Okay, turn that off. Hear the tone change? Yeah. And ANL is only available See, a little bit quieter. A&L is only available in AM and AM narrow. Okay, so that's that covered. Squelch and voice squelch covered. Okay, what we're going to do now, we'll try and implement some of them. I'm going to do a scan of my local stations. We're going to try and implement some of those things. Okay, what I'm going to do next, I'm going to cover memory channels in the next video. So let's go to MR. So we'll notice at the moment the squelch is open. Okay, that is a local holiday park. Okay, 167.03750. Okay, now we're not scanning at the moment, that's just the last channel I was on. Let's use the scope function. There's no one talking there, but well, I'll tell you what, before we do that, what's our step set to? 25 kilohertz. Now the radio has done that itself because it thinks 25 kilohertz is the right step to use for this band. I would disagree with that. There's that many users now, I go to 6.25. So scope, single sweep, not a dicky bird. So I know that no one is talking or nothing's happening 15 times 6.25 kilohertz steps that way from that frequency, and 15.6.25 kilohertz that way from that frequency. Okay, very brief description of how the scope works. I hope you enjoyed that video. I'll go into a lot more detail as the videos go forward. If there's anything you want more clarity on, feel free to drop me a message on the Facebook group, leave a comment under the video. Hope you enjoyed this. The next video, we're going to be going to a local mountain, which is Money the Cum. We will be doing some signal acquisition, memory channels, how to identify a digital signal. And one thing I've got to say is the laws on receiver use in the UK are completely different to the US. It's a bit of a grey area, but Ofcom, their sweeping statement is you should only be listening to things that are intended for public transmission, or for your ears only sort of thing. It's open to interpretation. I invite you all to go and look at the Ofcom website on what you can and can't listen to. Okay, thank you very much for watching. And I'll see you all soon. The next video should be on Sunday. Take care.